quarantine stuff. What else can we do here? It sucks to be stuck where you can't do shit and they just put the whole state under lockdown. So all you can do is hope you don't run out of this shit, you know? It's a fucking sad state of affairs. It really is. Maybe this will get me through it. Maybe this makes me immune. I don't know. All I know is right about now, I ain't leaving the fucking house. Except if I really, really have to. But the point of this whole exercise is in a minute here. Did you ever see a film back in the day that for whatever reason just sort of slipped through the cracks and you never saw it again? Well, I'm going to take you back to 1967. I might have been 14 or 15 years old, and I already started my cutting school shit. And cutting school, my local grind house was the Embassy Theater, which was a mile or so away from school. So, being young and limber and full of shit, you could run there, walk there, whatever. So this time, I was going to cut school and go see this movie called The Corrupt Ones. It was 1967. It was co-billed with something called The Second Best Secret Agent in the Whole Wide World, which had been tagged on something else I saw, and I sort of knew it sucked, but didn't want to be in school. Now, the whole thing about The Corrupt Ones is, it's sort of like a precursor to things like Raiders to the Lost Ark. It opens up with this fight on a train between an Asian guy and another guy. The other guy kills the Asian guy and peels a medallion off him that we will find out it is the Peking medallion. Then the credits roll for The Corrupt Ones, where singer Dusty Springfield sings the song. After the credits, we see Robert Stack, who is a photographer, and they are in like Red China, where they ain't supposed to be. And he's taking pictures and he gets discovered. He escapes, leaving all his shit there, and runs into the guy who has the medallion. He has a boat, they get in the boat, they escape, they get back to wherever they're supposed to be. Macau it was set in. Supposed to be the most dangerous city in the world, according to them. But anyway, the guy is a little bit, shall we say, put off, for lack of better words, until he sees he's being watched and agrees to have a drink with Robert Stack. So he slips Robert Stack something and says, I will contact you and come back and get this. Okay, so, you know, Stack goes back to his room, going to take a bath and whatever, and finds out that a woman has come into his room looking for something. That woman is the guy's wife, who was played by Elke Summer, who is probably one of the most beautiful women in film back in the 60s and 70s. And she says he can turn it over to her. Well, he's not inclined to do so. So basically she pulls a gun on him, but it's a small gun. He turns it around and gets her out of the room. He goes to this house of ill repute where he hooks up with this woman who says that this guy Danny, the guy who gave him the medallion, wants to meet him at a certain warehouse. Only when Danny gets to the warehouse, he gets abducted by a bunch of Tongs, the Asian crime syndicate. Robert Stack character is there and doesn't find him. So he finds himself called down to the police chief Pinto's office. Pinto is played by German actor Werner Peters. Pinto is aware that something is going on and tries to give the third degree on Stack. So he says, well, I got to talk to Danny. He goes, oh, well, let me take you to Danny. Well, in the interim, Danny was getting tortured with a fucking blowtorch. This is 1967, and they're torturing a guy with a blowtorch. There was no MPA ratings at this time. So he finds that Danny is now in a funeral parlor, and his wife is standing over him. And she says, whatever's going on, I'm supposed to get a piece of it, that she was, went down, with Danny, became a working girl to, support Danny, yada, yada, yada. So Pinto comes in and says, well, say your goodbyes because you're going to go out to the station and search you. So before anybody can do anything, he slips the medallion into the casket and he gets buried. So now he's taken down to the station, strip searched and whatever, and Pinto admits that he has this one desire to be filthy rich, obscenely rich. And he says that medallion is the key to everything. But nobody seems to know what the medallion really is. So Stack is picked up because he's a photographer and brought to Tina, who is basically the head of the Tongs there, played by Nancy Kwan, who becomes the Dragon Lady. Well, she seduces him, and, you know, things go on, and then he's rescued again by Pinto coming in and things like that. So a bunch of shit goes on. The bottom line is the medallion is a key to something, and nobody knows what it is. Until Stack puts the medallion over a map and finds out that this is the key to a huge treasure. So he's also picked up by Joe's little mafia bunch of guys there, played by Christian Marquand. See, there's the mafia on one side and the Tongs on the other side and Pinto in the middle. Well, they decide how to get information out of Stack is to capture Danny's wife and set her up for a little torture. What I didn't mention before was the guy who botched the job on Danny was giving an acid face bath. They tie him down to this thing, and this thing just dangles over him and drips acid on his face and shit. Now they're going to do the same thing to Elke. Well, Stack shows up and says he's going to make the trade-off, but Pinto was getting queasy about the whole thing and kept saying that he's not really here, he's not really here. Well, Tina and Joe get the medallion and cut Pinto out. So they're still trying to figure this out. They bring in this scholar, this and the other thing, when Stack goes to Pinto and says, I have the answer. And the thing is that the entrance to this sacred temple with a bunch of treasure is in this place called the Temple of Bells. So they close the Temple of Bells and go in there to do some reconnaissance, get into they find this stone on the floor they can move, and it's a stairway down into the temple. Joe and Tina get a little hint about what's going on because one of their minions comes back and says Pinto would close the temple. So now they get involved in the act, but they're behind the whole thing. Well, the temple is full of jewels, a huge statue, a crown encrusted with jewels, a treasure chest, the whole deal. But Tina and Joe come in and they just decide that there just ain't enough to go around. Where Pinto objects, everybody objects that there is enough. Well, little gunplay starts, and guess what? There's a fucking cave-in. The way out is no longer there. So they're sitting there trying to figure out what the hell it is. They're surrounded with all this wealth and stuff when they see a waif of smoke disappear to something. So there is another way out. So they sort of find a way to the top, and they're tunneling out. And this is going to be the big double cross. Tina gets up on top and has Pinto, Elke, and Stack up there, when all of a sudden she decides that she's going to be the one taking it all. So she tries to double-cross Joe. She shoots. The three run away. But the thing is, where they surfaced, they're in Red China, and the Chinese soldiers hear this shit. So Tina tries to take them on with her handgun, which winds up getting her killed. Joe pops up, shoots a few of them, grabs a machine gun, one of them drop, blows a few more away, and goes down into the hole where they toss a couple grenades, and that's the end of the whole thing. Meanwhile, the three are making a beeline to the border and just hop over the fence just ahead of getting cut down by machine guns. And they sit there lamenting that, all that treasure is lost. Well, Pinto starts shaking off his shoe and reaches in his shoe and pulls out like 3 large gems, and he goes, I never could resist taking a souvenir. Then the song starts again and it ends. My description doesn't do the film justice because the film is head and shoulders above anything I could put over. The film is really good. It has some really great characters in it and, an international cast. My question is, this film came out on Atco Embassy home video on a video cassette and hasn't been seen since. Yours truly had to get this, a German Blu-ray of it that I had to get actually from Germany, which cost me a lot more than I would actually spend on a regular DVD, but this movie stuck in my head for so many years, and it's such a good action-packed film, and like I said, had no restrictions on it because of the MPAA, so, it's really worth a look. Trouble is, if you want to blow $40, you can get it from Germany, but hopefully somebody will wise up because it was released by Warner Brothers, and I was really surprised that it never showed up on their archive burn-on-demand label. So, that's the story of the corrupt ones, alternate title, the Peking Medallion. And like I said, it's definitely worth a look if you can find it. This is 42nd Street Pete, saying thanks for tuning in, thanks for subscribing to the channel, and above all, stay safe in these perilous times. Catch you on the flip side.